just to take a minute to introduce myself, I'm a pediatric physical therapist. I live in Austin, Texas. Predominantly, what I do is I see kids 3 days a week. I see kids in the home for physical therapy, pediatrics, and 2 days a week I'm a school therapist. I also help run the muscular dystrophy clinic that's here in Austin, and I volunteered at MDA summer camp. So I've been working with the Duchenne population for about 20 years in a lot of different areas. So hopefully I can lend many different perspectives, not just like a clinic based, but school based and outside of that. Hopefully I could lend that perspective to you guys. And I've been with Cure Duchenne for about 4.5 years now, and I travel around and help do their education for them. We train therapists on proper protocols and what to do for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and also do the family workshops. So obviously we're not traveling around right now. We're doing these. So a little bit about physical therapy and why it's important to start early. If your child is 2 or 3 years old, might not be symptomatic, there might not be issues. So why is it still important to start or develop a relationship with a physical therapist? You want to kind of establish a baseline. So Stacy Keener had said before in one of the comments that that she tries to live in today, and what is her son doing today, and she wants to celebrate what he's doing today. So that's what we want to get an idea. We want to do an evaluation early so we can get an idea of where we are now. What kinds of things is he able to do? If they're having difficulties with any kinds of things, getting up from the floor or accessing playgrounds or things like that, we want to be able to try to address those things as early as possible. And also, you want to develop a relationship with a therapist early. We're usually one of the more consistent members of the team. So we just want to make sure that that you guys as parents have access to us for questions, for education, for things like that. Let you know kind of what to look for to help guide you in terms of energy conservation, or what activities are okay, or maybe what activities should be avoided. So what does the therapy look like at this early stage? I say typically that it's episodic, and what I mean by that is if there are not a whole lot of issues, if they're not having difficulties, if we've done a bunch of education with the parents and things are pretty stable, then I might not see them on a weekly basis. I don't want so much time to go by that that there could be changes that are not picked up on. But usually if everything is going well, I might see the kids that I see once a month, maybe every 5 or 6 weeks, and kind of check in. And that gives me the ability to lend an objective and critical eye and kind of see things that maybe as parents, if you're seeing your child every single day, that you might not pick up on. So I do think it's important, even if there are not issues that we need to address on a weekly basis, that we're at least checking in on a regular time period. Also, the physical therapist can help guide when to see other specialists, maybe when to see an orthopedic doctor, or somebody that makes braces, or psychologist, or just whatever comes up. If you have a relationship, a consistent relationship with a physical therapist, they can help with that. They know your child. Some of the doctors will maybe only see your child once a year, or maybe even less. So they might not kind of have the whole picture and see the ins and outs of your child. But even if you're a therapist, even if your physical therapist is seeing you once a month, they have a good idea of what your child is like. And then also, as your child gets to the age where they're going into school, help you to navigate the school process. So even if they're not a school therapist like myself, if I'm coming into the home and seeing the child, um, we can kind of help guide the process in terms of what to look for, what questions to ask, to make sure that the staff, the teachers, the PE coach, everybody that's going to be involved with your child in school, make sure that they're aware of what Duchenne is. And so I think that's really important to have you have somebody to help guide that process as well. Sometimes it's difficult. I do hear from a lot of families in other places or some of the workshops that we do that it's sometimes hard to find a physical therapist that understands Duchenne. And that's pretty common, and many reasons to that. For one, um, living in this community, it seems like Duchenne is very prevalent and it's very common, but it's actually, it is a rare disease. So you can have pediatric physical therapists that might have been practicing for 15 years, 20 years, that have never seen a child with Duchenne before. Also, when we come out of physical therapy school, when we come out of graduate school, we're kind of taught to be generalists. So we are trained to know a bunch about many different things. So we usually don't specialize coming out of school. We specialize after we come out of school. So if you have somebody that is, kind of newly out of school or a couple of years out of school, it just might not be something that they've ever been exposed to. Um, I also say that it's a unique diagnosis in that a lot of other pediatric conditions that we see, um, a lot of it involves symmetry and strengthening. And if something is weak, we go ahead and strengthen it. And with Duchenne, it's a much different approach. You don't want to do strengthening. So it really takes a different mindset. We want to make sure that the kids are active, mobile, have good range of motion, but we want to have the physical therapy kind of come at it from the vantage point of that, and not necessarily strengthening something that's weak, because we can actually make the condition worse or speed up the process. Some things to ask a physical therapist. It's really important. I always say to interview a therapist before you start working with them. As I said before, this might be something where, you have a kind of consistent relationship with the therapist, and you might see them frequently, or they might be coming into your home, and you really do develop a relationship with them. So you, first and foremost, you want it to be somebody that you're comfortable with. You want it to be somebody that you feel like you can ask questions. They're going to give you honest answers. If if this therapist is seeing your child in a clinic and they won't let you come back to the therapy session, that's not a good sign too, because you need to see what's going on, and you need to see what to do with your child at home. So it's important to find somebody that has that knowledge. And so you want to ask them a couple of questions. A lot of times we do more research or kind of legwork or asking questions when we're buying furniture or we're buying a car than we might if we're trying to find a physical therapist. So you want to ask them first and foremost, have you ever treated somebody before with Duchenne? Just because they haven't, I wouldn't necessarily not use them, but you want to make sure that they're willing to learn, that they're not everybody knows about everything. That's okay, but we all have to be willing to learn and open to new information. And then you want to ask them if they have had physical therapy, if they have worked with somebody with Duchenne before, what type of activities were they doing in physical therapy with that child? If they tell you that, we did a lot of strengthening, I had the child, they had difficulty with stairs, so I had them go up and down stairs a whole bunch, that's something that we want to really try to stay away from. Because again, we don't want to do strengthening. So you want to hear that that their therapy was focusing on range of motion, staying active without getting too much fatigue, not doing strengthening, things like that. And then also, again, would they be willing to collaborate with somebody such as myself or our other physical therapist that's on staff, Jennifer? Would they be willing to collaborate with somebody that does know more about Duchenne muscular dystrophy? Again, you want to try to see if they're open and willing to learn. And so what will those physical therapy sessions, what will they sometimes include? What will that look like? It could be many different things depending upon what's needed, but some kind of basics and some key things. A lot of stretching. The kids tend to get tight, so we want to not necessarily do stretching during therapy. We can certainly do that, but make sure that they're teaching you guys how to do stretching at home. Also massage, that's something that you can incorporate at home. They can do that during the therapy session as well. Aquatic therapy, not everybody has access to pools, but certainly if you do, that's a really great therapeutic tool. It's just gravity is kind of not a friend to these boys, and it makes everything kind of more difficult. So when you get in the water, that takes some of that gravity out of the equation. Appropriate exercise. Yeah.
Hey, Doug, it's Tiff. I have
Yeah.
a question that just came in from
Sure.
Debbie.
And Debbie, if you want to put your question in the chat, then I have that on my screen as well, so I can certainly.
Yeah, or in the Q&A. There's one of. So we do have a question while I interrupted you. This is from Cynthia or Anuar from Mexico. You met by Zoom a few weeks ago. They're going to travel to San Antonio in July, and they have an appointment with Dr. Ahmad. They want to meet you and want you to see Anuar as possible. Anwar. So you can answer that. You'll let her know later.
Yeah. Cynthia, we can definitely talk about that. Talk about that either after or at another time. So I'd be happy to if I'm able to.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's okay. And please keep the questions coming. That's why we're here. So the next thing for physical therapy, appropriate exercise. I put appropriate because it is true that we don't want to do a lot of strengthening activities with these kids because it can cause more muscle breakdown. But we also don't want them just kind of sitting on a couch all day long and not doing anything to hopefully preserve their muscles, because there's a downside to not being active as well, just from a physical standpoint, but also from a social and psychological standpoint too. We want these kids to be able to be as independent as possible. Susan had said one of the things that I can't remember which word, Susan, you had commented on, but you said living for quality and not quantity. And that's where I feel like as physical therapists, we should help with that. It's not about doing, X number of repetitions for an exercise, but it's about quality of life. So we want to help you guys guide that process. What can they do that's appropriate, that they can get out with their friends, with their family, that they can do where they're kind of minimizing the damage to their muscles. So equipment is part of the physical therapy process as well. Whatever is needed to help preserve independence and function, we try to introduce that equipment where needed. And then consultation with other members of the team, the school staff, coaches, other parts of the medical team. Orthotics are people that make braces. So when do we introduce those things? And I'll talk about that in just a little bit as far as braces go. So some things to kind of, as far as activities, some things to kind of look for that are okay, and some things to kind of shy away from. Some things to do, again, really important to make sure that they're active and they're mobile, but energy conservation is important throughout the day. So if they're doing a whole bunch of activity and they're out running around and they're doing all this stuff, and by 2 o'clock, they're exhausted, maybe they've done too much. So making sure that frequent rest breaks are taken throughout the day to make sure that they have energy conservation throughout the day. So we want to encourage mobility and activity with friends. How can we make sure that they're involved with their friends and in doing the things that their friends are doing, their families are doing, things that they like doing. How can they incorporate themselves into those activities? And then help guide the activities. If there's something that they really like, let's say they love playing soccer, but we're really worried about all the running and stopping and starting and things like that. Maybe they can play goalie. Maybe there's some role that they can play on the team where they're still fully involved with the team, but it's not as physically demanding on them. And then some things to kind of shy away from. You don't want to play until exhaustion. For kids that don't have Duchenne, they might do all this activity, they'll be tired, then by the next day, their body will recuperate, will repair itself, kind of come back to where it was. With these boys, they're not going to bounce back like that, and it's going to be a whole lot additional time, a lot longer to heal. So also, you want to try to avoid higher demand activities, running, going up and down hills, jumping, stairs, things like that. That's for the super young kids, the ones that are 2 and 3 and 4. It is, I will fully recognize, it's hard to modify those activities. I mean, it's, how do you tell a 2 or 3-year-old, make sure you take frequent rest breaks, or it's tough, but we want to try to have that in the back of our heads to make sure that they're not doing too much, they're not damaging their muscles. So again, it's a balance, and it's kind of a dance, and that dance does change over time. So just some things to look at. There's lots of, when you're looking at modifying activities, how can we minimize any of the stress or strain on the muscles? Here are just a bunch of things to kind of keep in mind. So stairs, do they have to go up and down the stairs? Is there an elevator, or if it's in the home, is there a way that we can move the bedroom downstairs so that they don't have to go up and down the stairs many times? Seat heights, this is more for like meals, or if they're doing activities. Even at school, we want to make sure that the height of the desk is the right height for them, so that, because over time, even if they're not doing a heavy activity, if they're just trying to kind of write something or whatever it is, over time, if they're not positioned correctly, that could contribute to fatigue. So outdoor play areas at school, at recess, for sometimes birthday parties, we want to take a look at that to try to maybe minimize some of those activities where they're really doing a lot of heavy work. Chores, how can they contribute to what the family's chores are, or what they need to do? How can they contribute to those things and maybe make them not as physically demanding? Power assisted bikes, those have come down in price so much. I saw one posted on one of the Facebook groups the other day, an electric bike, and I think the person had it for his 5-year-old or 6-year-old. And it was, he's able to pedal, but the bike also assists when he needs help. So that's great as well. Swimming, we talked about before, great activity. And then social events, we don't want the kids to not go to birthday parties, not participate in play dates. But how, as parents, how can we modify those activities? So, letting the other parents know of the play date person, what's going on, what things to avoid, and maybe making some suggestions for that. And then just modification suggestions, swimming instead of other activities, board or card games. A lot of times that comes into play as the kids get older during recess. They can sometimes pick a buddy to stay back with them and play games. What my experience as a school therapist has been that the teachers that are great, that have an understanding of Duchenne, and they utilize this where they do board games at recess, and the child can pick a buddy to do that with them. Kids are just overwhelmed with excitement to be able to do that. They want to be the one to be picked to help out with that. So just lots of other social activities or considerations to think about that are there. Stretching, you hear this a lot. It's such an important part of Duchenne, because when you have damage to the muscle, if they're doing a lot of activity, if there's damage to the muscle, you can get that muscle kind of replaced with scar tissue, which makes it, the scar tissue is not as stretchable as muscle tissue, and so your joints can get tighter, the muscles can get tighter over time. So starting stretching early and often is really the best thing. And some general rules to stretching. And this is where you want to try to consult a therapist. We have lots of great things on our website. Jennifer, who's pictured there in the slide, has put together a really nice video. It's short, maybe 6-7 minutes long, on various stretches and hand placement. But some general rules: it shouldn't be painful. It might be a little bit uncomfortable because you're stretching a muscle, but it shouldn't be painful. You want to try to hold the stretch for 60 seconds, or I say at least 45 seconds. And when you're starting a stretching routine, I would have a timer there, because when you're stretching, 45 seconds or 60 seconds is a lot longer than you think it is. And then sometimes you want to kind of watch for this as you push against a tight muscle. If you hold it there over time, sometimes 10 or 15 seconds in, the muscle will kind of release a little bit, and you can kind of move the joint a little bit further. A daily routine is the most effective. Fully well understand that not everybody can do that. There's work, there's homework, there's other siblings, there's garbage that has to be taken out, there's all kinds of stuff, but you really want to try to make it as frequent as possible. A massage table or a solid surface is really best. Massage tables have come down dramatically in price as well. We've seen them on Amazon for like $130, $140, really stable, good massage tables that are padded and that kind of fold down, and when you're not using them, and can go underneath the bed or something like that. But it just puts you in a better position to do the stretching so you don't hurt yourself. And then what's the ideal routine for everybody? This is different. Ideally, it's best if you can do it like after a warm bath, when the child is most relaxed, because it just helps to stretch the muscles the best. But if you find that the morning is better, if you find after school is better, whatever works for you, you will just want to try to get into some sort of routine where you can do it consistently. And then I'll just talk a little bit about orthoses. I mentioned before, these are some sort of braces. You can have orthoses for the hand and wrist, or for the feet, or for the knees. What's most common for the boys with Duchenne is what's called an ankle foot orthosis, or an AFO. They are most typically not recommended for walking for two reasons: because they kind of lock the ankle down in a certain position, usually a 90-degree position. And then the child is not able to have their ankle be flexible and maybe use some of the strategies that they need to do for walking. So they're typically used at nighttime, or I put here resting splints. So that can be done if they're just going to be doing some sitting, like in the evenings, if they're doing homework or playing games. You can put them on in the evening as well, but we just don't want them walking around in them. The other reason is that they do add some weight, a little bit of weight. And so it just makes walking a little bit more difficult, and it might not seem like a lot of weight. It's only maybe half a pound, 3/4 of a pound each. But over time, over thousands of steps throughout the day, that could just make things more difficult. We don't want to make things any more difficult than they have to be. And you really want to start early. You want to start the nighttime braces for a couple of reasons before tightness even starts. And so usually for the kids that I see, that I'm seeing in clinic, we usually will recommend these around 2 years of age, or even 3 years of age. The younger you start, usually the compliance is better. They don't fight it as much. If you try to start the braces for somebody that's 7 or 8, it's usually much more difficult to get them to do it. So we want to start younger, but then also another reason is if they already start getting tight, it's really hard to reverse that. Usually the braces kind of keep things where they are. So if you're waiting until after you see tightness, we want to try to stay ahead of that. Um, I hear lots. It's really, really common that parents say, my child won't tolerate it. They take it off in the middle of the night. They throw them across the room. So I always tell them, do what you can. Bribing works. Anything. I think that the nighttime braces are so beneficial, so that whatever you can do to get them to do it. So whether it's making some type of check off chart that they get, a sticker if they've kept them on for a whole week, or one night we're going to do the left side, one night we're going to do the right side. Anything to get them to use it, because I think there are tremendous benefits to it, and I really believe that something is better than nothing. So if we can do it 5 days a week, that's better than nothing at all. And so the other thing is that Duchenne really requires comprehensive care. At various times, there's many different people throughout this team. And so, with just the understanding that there might be many people on the team, and have them coming in and out at different times, and the therapist can sometimes help navigate this process, because there could be lots and lots of uh, people that are involved. Stacy had said, as far as the AFOs, my son wears them while he plays video games. That's great. Again, that's downtime, when they're not going to be standing or walking, and so that's totally fine. I think that's fantastic. Anytime that we can get the kids to do it is great.
Thanks so much, Doug.